hey, you made it here. That sentence alone already says a lot more than it seems to. It means somewhere in all of this, you still had enough energy to reach for something that might make the night a tiny bit more bearable. It means that even though part of you might not care about anything right now, another part of you still hopes for some kind of relief, or at least understanding. You don't have to be sure you want to be here. You don't have to be convinced that anything can help. You can be skeptical and tired and angry and numb and still stay. This is for you in exactly that state. There's a person missing from your world. Not just a name, not just a role, a person with a voice, with a way of texting, with a particular smell, with habits that could drive you crazy and make you laugh within the same hour, with a position in your life that nothing and no one has been able to occupy in the same way. They are not here anymore. The world has the nerve to keep spinning. Your heart knows that shouldn't make sense, but your calendar doesn't care. The next day still comes. The emails still show up. People still ask you questions like, hey, did you see that show? And somewhere inside you there's this quiet, stunned voice saying, how are we all just doing this? Don't you know what happened? Don't you know who's gone? There's a before and there's an after. You're living in the after, and none of the maps you had were drawn for this territory. You know, a lot of people talk about grief like it's a problem to be solved. Steps, stages, tips, hacks, as if losing someone you love is like misplacing a file on your computer. Click here, follow these steps, and eventually you'll reach acceptance, and the program will close. But you know better now. You know it's not like that. Grief is not a project. It's not a self-improvement goal. It's not a lesson you're supposed to ace and move on from. Grief is love with nowhere to go. Grief is your entire nervous system trying to figure out how to live in a world where the rules have changed without warning. Grief is your mind still expecting their voice, their footsteps, their messages, while reality keeps insisting that this expectation will never be met in the way it used to be. There's that surreal period, isn't there? Where everything feels like a mistake. Where your brain keeps saying, no, this is a glitch. They're gonna walk through the door. I'm gonna get a call that says, we got it wrong. This is gonna turn out to be a nightmare, and I'm gonna wake up. Sometimes your body knows before your mind catches up. The heaviness, the pressure behind your eyes, the way your appetite disappears or explodes, the way sounds feel too loud or too far away, the way ordinary tasks suddenly feel like trying to run through water. People might look at you and see someone being strong, someone handling it so well. They don't see the internal negotiation it took just to stand up, just to get dressed, just to walk into a room and answer, how are you? With any words at all. And then there are the complicated moments that nobody prepares you for. When the grief isn't clean, when your relationship with them wasn't perfect, when there were unresolved arguments or distance or mistakes on both sides, or 1,000 little I'll talk to them about that later moments that never got there later. People like to speak well of the dead. It's a strange social rule. All their edges get rounded off, all their complexity gets polished into a soft, one-dimensional version. Such a good person. Always so kind. Always so happy. Maybe some of that's true, but you remember the whole person, the warmth, the sharpness, the ways they could show up for you and the ways they failed you, the things you adored and the things you resented, the stupid arguments over nothing, the things you forgave and the things you didn't know what to do with. Grief gets even heavier when it has to carry all the things that never got said. There are versions of this loss that feel almost unspeakable. The parent who wasn't always what you needed them to be. The partner you loved even when the relationship was hard. The friend you'd been distant from, so the last messages are half-hearted jokes instead of anything profound. The person you'd been meaning to reconnect with, but life kept happening and time kept slipping by, and now the door is just closed. You might not even feel like you're grieving the right way. You might tell yourself, I shouldn't be this sad, or I should be sadder, or we were complicated, so I don't have the right to feel this much, or we were so close, so how can I be functioning at all? So here's something that doesn't get said enough. There is no morally correct way to grieve. You can feel angry and still be grieving. You can feel numb and still be grieving. You can feel relief and still be grieving. You can feel confused, bitter, guilty, resentful, grateful, shattered, and somehow still find yourself laughing at something stupid on your phone, and all of that is still grief. Watching your own reactions can be disorienting. The days when you cry unexpectedly over something tiny. The days when you don't cry at all and then feel guilty for it. The days when you feel like you're functioning, and the days when brushing your teeth feels like climbing a mountain. What nobody tells you is that your grief is not on a timeline. There's no hidden clock counting down to the day you're supposed to be over it. You might notice other people getting impatient, even if they never say it directly. The world gets tired of hearing about loss faster than the heart gets tired of feeling it. Someone says, "It's been a while now, hasn't it?" Or they stop mentioning the person at all, like saying their name would reopen something you should have sewn shut by now. But you know the truth. For you, it hasn't been that long. Because for you, time isn't counted in calendar pages. It's counted in how many mornings you've woken up and remembered all over again. How many nights you've gone to bed with that ache curled up beside you. How many times you've reached for your phone to text them something and had to pull your hand back. In your body, maybe it still feels like yesterday, or like 5 minutes ago, or like a weird floating eternity where the days blur but the loss is always sharp. There is another layer that tends to show up quietly. The what ifs. What if you had pushed harder for them to see a doctor earlier? What if you'd insisted they stay home that night? What if you hadn't let them drive? What if you'd called them back? What if you'd answered the phone? What if that last conversation had gone differently? What if you had told them exactly how much they meant to you without saving it for some special occasion that never arrived? Your mind replays scenes like you're holding a remote you can't put down. You rewind, pause, replay. You imagine yourself standing in those rooms again, saying different words, making different choices, changing the sequence of events like a director reshooting a scene. Part of you knows it won't change anything. The other part doesn't care. The other part hopes that if it can just find the exact point of failure, the exact misstep, then at least the pain will make sense. Guilt often isn't about logic. It's about wanting a reason, even if that reason is unfairly placed on your own shoulders. From the outside, someone might say to you, you did the best you could, or you couldn't have known, and maybe you nod because that's what you're supposed to do, but inside the arguments continue. What is true beneath all of that noise is that the version of you who lived those moments did not have the information you have now. They did not know this would be the last time. They did not know which moment was going to grow teeth in your memory. That version of you was tired or stressed or distracted or hopeful or scared and was making choices based on what they knew then. The fact that you are looking back with a broken heart now does not mean you failed then. If the person you lost could sit across from you now and look you in the eye and hear every single detail of what you're blaming yourself for, they would also see all the things you aren't mentioning. The little kindnesses, the patience, the ways you showed up, the times you stayed, the moments you loved them in the ordinary, unremarkable ways that never felt important enough to remember until now. You remember every perceived mistake and forget how many times you were simply there. There is a part of grief that is about the shape of your relationship with them. And there is a part that is about the shape of your relationship with yourself. Grief puts a spotlight on how you talk to yourself. It amplifies that inner voice. If that voice was already harsh, already critical, it can become ruthless when something this enormous happens. You should have known. You should have done more. You should be coping better by now. You're disappointing them. You're disappointing everyone. But imagine, just for a second, that you weren't inside your own head. Imagine this was your closest friend instead telling you the exact same story you're living. Same details, same timeline, same what ifs. Would you say to them what you say to yourself? Would you look at them and say, you're right, you failed. You should be destroyed forever by this. You don't deserve peace, ever. Or would you look at their tired, swollen eyes, their shaking hands, the way they're just trying to keep breathing and feel something else? Something like compassion? You might say, of course you feel this way. Of course you're replaying everything. Oh, this was huge. This was unfair. It makes sense that you're a mess right now. You're not a monster. You're in pain. That person is you. Grief doesn't take away your right to be treated gently by your own mind. In fact, it increases it. There's another piece no one really explains clearly. When you lost them, you also lost a version of yourself. There was a you that only existed in relationship to them. You as their kid, you as their partner, you as their chosen person, you as the one they called, the one they confided in, the one they teased, the one they believed in. That version of you lived in their gaze, in their approval, in their annoyance, in their laughter. They reflected you back to yourself. Now there's this strange vacancy where that reflection used to be. You might notice how often you think, they would have loved this. They would have hated this. They would have told me I'm being ridiculous. They would know what to say here. They would roll their eyes and tell me to go to sleep. The world is quieter without their opinions about you. And at the same time, so much louder without their presence. You're not just figuring out how to live without them. You're figuring out how to live as this new person, the one who has this loss woven into their story. Nobody volunteers for this transformation. Nobody raises a hand and says, "Yes, I'd love to be profoundly changed by grief, please." But here you are, changed, whether you want it to be or not, carrying experiences other people don't see, understanding depths they might not have had to look into yet. There will be moments where you feel separated from other people because of this. They're talking about small things, and your mind is somewhere else entirely. They're complaining about something that feels trivial to you now, and you catch yourself thinking, if only you knew how quickly everything can vanish. Then there are the people who do try to show up. Some of them get it a little more than others. They ask real questions. They let you talk without rushing in with solutions. They say the person's name. They remember dates without making a big performance out of it. They don't flinch when your eyes fill with tears. Others aren't as good at this. Maybe they change the subject quickly. Maybe they say things that feel like they're trying to cover a deep wound with a small sticker. Maybe they tell you stories about people who had it worse, as if that's supposed to make you feel grateful for your pain. Maybe they say nothing at all, as if your loss doesn't exist if it isn't convenient for the conversation. It's easy to feel isolated in that, to feel like everyone is moving on while you're still struggling to stand up. Your grief might not be visible in the way people expect. It might not look like constant tears. Sometimes grief looks like exhaustion, like irritability, like forgetfulness, like staring at nothing for long stretches of time, like being unreasonably attached to small routines because everything else feels unpredictable. There is so much you're carrying that nobody sees. The quiet moments of remembering, the private rituals you've developed without even noticing, the way you pause over their name in your contacts, the way you consider keeping or deleting their messages, the way you sit in their old chair or avoid that chair entirely, the way their clothing feels like evidence that they were once a solid, living presence in your world. There are anniversaries the calendar doesn't mark, not just the obvious dates, the day they died, their birthday, but tiny personal ones. The last time we went to that restaurant, the last time they said that joke, the last time we sat out in the yard together, the last time their name popped up on my screen. You keep those dates in a quiet part of your mind, even if you don't consciously plan to. Your body remembers them sometimes before your thoughts catch up. One of the hardest things about this kind of loss is that there is no good time for it to hurt. You can be at work or in the grocery store or scrolling through something mindless, and suddenly grief taps you on the shoulder and says, "Remember? They're not here." And you do again, for the 100th, 1000th, 10,000th time. It's not that you forgot, it's that the mind can only fully take in a piece of this at a time. It circles back around, each time landing on a different part of the reality. There's a misconception that if you keep remembering, if you keep talking about them, you're somehow keeping yourself stuck, as if love and pain have a maximum number of allowed repetitions. But this person was woven through your days. They shaped who you are. They left marks on your thoughts and your habits and your humor. Remembering them is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that what you shared was real. You don't have to let go of them in order to go on. You don't have to erase them to keep existing. You aren't cheating on their memory by staying alive. You can carry them forward in ways that don't trap you in the past. Your way, not anyone else's. Maybe that means sometimes talking to them in your head, telling them about your day, telling them when you're mad at them, telling them when you're proud of yourself and wish they were here to see it. Maybe it means keeping a small object of theirs nearby, or continuing a little tradition they started, or doing something they always wanted to do but never got the chance, or simply living in a way that reflects what you learned from them. Even if you never put words to it, you don't have to make it into a project. You don't have to announce it. You don't owe anyone an explanation for what remembrance looks like for you. At the same time, you're allowed to set things down. You're allowed to decide that some items are too painful to keep. You're allowed to not force yourself to read every message, not keep every object, not visit every place you shared. There is no moral test you have to pass by carrying the heaviest possible reminders. The love existed. It still does. Whether or not you keep a box of their possessions, whether or not you visit the same spots, the fact that you shared life with them is written into who you are now. You may find that over time your grief changes temperature. It might not get better in the way people suggest, but it will shift. The edges might grow less jagged, even if the weight remains. The way you remember them may become less about the moment everything ended, and more about the whole arc of who they were to you. At first, the loss is the entire picture. Every thought of them is tied to the end, to the moment you found out, to the hospital, to the phone call, to the silence. But they are more than the way they left. They are also every ordinary day before that, the mess of living, the laughter that filled up small rooms, the things they were good at, the things they were terrible at, the times they comforted you, the times you comforted them, the moments where you both were just there, doing absolutely nothing special, and somehow those have become the sacred footage. When people talk about healing, it can sound like a betrayal, as if your love is supposed to shrink in order for you to be okay. What actually tends to happen slowly is that your capacity grows. You don't love them less. You grow around the loss. Your life builds new rooms that stand alongside the one where grief sits. Some days you spend more time in those rooms. Some days you find yourself back at the center of that old hurt, but one space does not erase the other. Even if it doesn't feel true yet, there is a future version of you who can carry both, who can think of them and smile before the tears come, who can tell stories about them without collapsing afterwards, who can show up to new things, meet new people, experience new joy, without feeling like they're betraying what used to be. Right now, you don't have to believe in that version. You just have to allow the possibility that your story doesn't end here. It's okay if you don't want to hear words like hope yet. Sometimes the most honest version of hope is very small, almost invisible. It can look like, I will make it through this night. I will answer one message. I will drink some water. I will feed myself something, even if I don't taste it. I will let one person know I'm not doing great instead of pretending. These small acts might not feel heroic to you. They might not feel like anything at all. But to an outside observer, to someone who understands the weight you're under, each one looks like defiance. Each one looks like, in spite of this, I'm still here. You being here still matters. Your existence still matters. Even in pain, even in confusion, even when you feel like a ghost in your own life. The person you lost is not here to argue with the way you're judging yourself. So I'll say what they might if they could. You are not a failure for struggling. You are not weak because this devastated you. You are not a disappointment for not bouncing back. Your tears do not embarrass the memory of the person you lost. Your needs are not a burden. You're not meant to carry this alone. This loss will always be part of your story, but it does not have to be the only sentence. It does not have to be the only thing you are allowed to talk about, or the only thing you're allowed to move beyond. You can keep their love, keep what they gave you, keep the ways they made you more yourself, and still keep becoming. Right now, though, none of this needs to be a plan. Right now, it's enough that you're lying here, listening, that you have allowed someone to speak into the space where the silence has been the loudest. You don't have to do anything with these words. You don't have to remember them. You don't have to agree with all of them. You can let them wash over you and only hold on to the parts that feel true. If all you take away from this is one simple sentence, let it be this: you are not wrong for hurting this much. You hurt this much because you loved. You hurt this much because what happened was real. You hurt this much because their presence in your life mattered. And even now, in the raw reality of their absence, you still matter. Not because you're handling it well, not because you're strong or poetic in your pain, not because you'll turn this into something inspiring someday. You matter because you are a human being with a heart that has been torn open and is still beating. That alone is more than enough reason for you to stay. Stay, even tired. Stay, even angry. Stay, even confused. Stay, even when you feel like a fragment of yourself. There are moments ahead you haven't lived yet, people you haven't met yet, versions of yourself you haven't grown into yet, memories that will never erase what came before, but will sit alongside it. There is a you on the other side of this moment who looks back and is quietly grateful that despite everything, you stayed. For now. If nothing else, let the truth settle somewhere deep inside. Your love was real, your loss is real, your grief is real, and your life is still worth living.